Hello and good evening. Welcome to the Mythical Ireland Library. Fáilte Macharja Goléir ar fud na Cruinne. Chuig an Laurelin Seo is Misha Antone. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Live Irish Myths, episode number 360. We're nearly at 365. There'd be one episode for every day of the year if you were, stuck for something to do and wanted to binge watch something. Anyway, you're all very welcome on what is here a cold, wet, and slightly breezy evening. It's 4 degrees. No sign of winter clearing off just yet here in the Boyne Valley. I hope that the weather is a little bit better where you are. It's done a lot of rain here in Ireland, particularly in the east and southeast of the country, where we've had flooding in the past week. And no sign of the rain relenting at this moment in time. Yes, it is the 3rd of February. Yesterday was the St. Brigid's Day bank holiday or public holiday here in Ireland. Something that was, I think, only initiated in, was it 2023? So, great. In recognition of the fact that the 1st of February has traditionally been, for many a long year, the Feast of St. Brigid. And of course, the 4th of February is, technically speaking, the 4th of February marks astronomical Imbolg. Imbolg being the, we think, very ancient festival marking the halfway point between the winter solstice and the vernal equinox. Hard to believe that winter solstice is now behind us by, I was going to say 6.5 weeks. Let me just, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks and 2 days. Yep. Seems like a distant memory already when we were at Newgrange. Well, I was at Baltray on the morning of the 21st of December, where I was at Newgrange on the 19th and the 20th and the 22nd and the 23rd. The days fly around fairly quickly, and it seems to be a thing that when you get older, time goes quicker, which when I was a youngster, I always wondered about those, especially the old men on the street that I grew up in, hanging around, chatting, standing at doorways and sitting on windowsills and chewing the cud. And it struck me that time was passing slowly for them and that they had all the time in the world. But time has proven me wrong on that front. I don't know if it's the same for the rest of you, but it seems to me that the older you get, the faster time goes. I don't know where 2025 went. It went past in a blur, and now we're into 2026, if you can believe it. Anyway, if you're joining us, whether you're watching on the Mythical Ireland YouTube channel, and if you are, please do subscribe to the channel and click on the notifications bell so that you get notified. Apologies, I'm stumbling on my words. So that you get notified of live streams and video uploads. Or on the Facebook page. Please do feel free to join in the conversation by commenting, and we'll do our best to promote and provoke conversation, discussion, dialogue, and community, which is what Mythical Ireland on social media is all about. Getting people talking about all this stuff in a very friendly and open way. Anyway, I hope you're all keeping well. I will start by saying hello to the people who have entered the library virtually. Lily Shambles is actually the first to comment tonight, saying, "Good evening, Anthony. I hope you and your family are doing well during this rough time for you all. Condolences on your aunt, and I hope Finn is doing well." You don't need to read this out. Oh, okay. Yeah, I just read that at the end. Thank you very much, Lily. And of course, yesterday on a cold but thankfully dry but quite grey St. Brigid's Day bank holiday, we laid my Auntie Jean to rest. A sad day indeed for the family, and a wonderful woman. And yeah, Finn is doing great. I'm glad to report. He is, yeah, he's bored now. He wants to go back to school, believe it or not, but he's not allowed. Doctor says 2 weeks off. Johnny Wilson is saying a big howdy from Dallas, Texas, where it's 19 degrees. That's a whole 15 degrees warmer than it is right here. 4 degrees here currently. Oh, don't start that, Anthony. No, don't start that now. Let's catch him. At John Smith XT1CB says, awesome show, Sacred Things. Welcome, John Smith. I don't think we've seen you before. You're very welcome to Live Irish Myths. I'm Anthony, of course, and you'll, I hope, receive a very warm welcome here from the regulars. Rex Q. Fortenberry tells us, greetings from a cool and overcast Louisiana swamp. Just checking, has the lower dove been retired? Myth on, my good man. Yes, retired a while back. To be honest, I was sick and tired of the. I was fed up of the latecomers. Just couldn't handle it anymore. No, I did. I just decided, no, enough of that. Enough of that. Rothio Marianne Lopez says, hello, mighty Tua and Mr. Anthony. Welcome, Imbolg, and hope everyone is in good shape and very warm in their homes. Well, it's nice and toasty in here, but I tell you what, it's not so toasty outside. Doesn't help that the east wind is kind of driving the rain. It's like you go outside and you get wet and cold in no time at all. Lily, officially, to be read out, says, evening, I hope all are well. Weather is currently 2 degrees Celsius, feels like -2, rain with a chance of snow. I'm starting to feel rusty. Well, what you need, Lily, is a good old can of WD-40. That'll get you loosened up rightly. Joe Butler is saying hello from Colorado, where it's a grey and wintry day with only a 20% chance of snow later. I have watered all the trees in my yard today. Brilliant. And hopefully they will come into bloom and blossom in a few months' time. That's still a while away yet, because we've 2 festivals to go before the leaves start to unfurl on the trees here. So if you think of Samhain being the traditional beginning of winter in Ireland, and Bealtaine being the traditional beginning of summer or the bright half of the year, we're actually only halfway between those at the moment. We're 2 festivals since Samhain, but we're 2 festivals until Bealtaine. So Samhain, winter solstice, Imbolg, and then Imbolg, vernal equinox or spring equinox, and Bealtaine. So still a while away from seeing the leaves on the trees, but you're giving them a good chance. Our trees don't need any watering, I can assure you. They've gotten plenty. It's falling from the sky in bucket loads. And Scott Doherty says, happy Mythflix Monday on Tuesday. Anthony, are you ready to build an ark yet? I know there was flooding in low-lying parts of Drogheda and fringes today, coinciding with high tide. Some roads were impassable. Thankfully, we are up on quite high ground here, so fingers crossed, touch wood and all that. We don't have to worry about that sort of thing. But yeah, all I can say is that after all the rain we've had over the winter time, we are due a very nice, warm, dry summer. Looks like you're getting hit much harder than I am. Yeah, I think the east and southeast in particular has taken the brunt. I know there's a lot of flooding down in counties Wexford and Kilkenny and Carlow in particular. Janet Moran says, hello, Anton and the mighty. Well, she doesn't use the word mighty. I just slipped that in there. And the Tua from a balmy Boston at 2 Celsius. Hope you're all well. Well, it's balmier here because we're at 4. So, yeah. But then Boston is renowned for cooler weather in the winter, I'm sure. Richard Burgess is saying, I'm so sorry for your loss. I'm sure you know that you and your family are the thoughts of this entire community. Yes. And I have to say, I was greatly heartened yesterday when I announced the postponement of the live stream in honor of my Auntie Jean, with all the lovely comments and the condolences. As I say, it was a sad day, but a day of celebration of Jean's life. She reached the grand old age of 88. She was a very independent woman, lived on her own, and traveled the world over the years, often to Thailand was her favorite destination. Phuket, I think you pronounce that, is it? And to other places like Cambodia and China, and some trips to Australia as well. So she had a good life, but of course that doesn't make it any easier to let go and say goodbye. But we always hold the hope, of course, that she's out there, she's gone, she's made that journey across the threshold between mortal life and what lies beyond. And yeah, and she is hopefully reunited with my granny. And my granny's name was Brigid, by the way, Jean's mother, my dad's mother, and my granddad James, who I never met because he died 10 years before I was born, and my uncles John and Jim, and my auntie May. And hopefully they're all reunited now. Afternoon all, says Adina Sparks. It's a sunny 52 Fahrenheit in New Mexico. What is that in Celsius? Let me find out very quickly with the Google conversion. 11.1111, all the ones. So cool enough. But hey, I'm sure you're not complaining when you see weather reports from other parts of the world. Brendan Byrne is building the ark as we speak. Plenty of oak in Glendalough. Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, didn't I see a picture or a video from Glendalough area? It seemed to be very badly hit by all the water there over the past week. February the 2nd was Candlemas, which apparently is when you're supposed to take your Christmas decorations down. That's funny because the tradition here in Ireland was that you took your Christmas decorations down on what we called Little Christmas, the Feast of the Epiphany on the 6th of January. And in fact, that is the day we took our Christmas decorations down in honor of that tradition. Some debate over whether that was really known widely as Women's Christmas. I saw some debate about that recently. Michael Fortune over on folklore.ie is a very good source for current folklore, and he was saying it wasn't really that much of a thing until recently. And I think I don't want to misquote him, but I think he or someone else was saying it was imported, that it wasn't traditionally associated with the idea of a women's holiday. Janet Moran says 1000% agree on time passing by. I know, right? It's February already. I mean, this is the thing. We're already at Imbolg. On the one hand, the solstice at Newgrange seems like a distant memory, but on the other hand, it's like, but that was only 6 weeks ago, and it's like, yep, that's the way it's going these days. Alan Hoskins says, evening, Anthony. Hi, everyone from Ballina, Killaloe. Hope all are well. Again, sorry for your loss, Anthony. No rain here in the Midwest. We seem to have been spared. Time? I'm still in 1975. How do you manage that, Alan? Alan, tell us. What's the secret, Are you still using... if you're stuck in 1975, you're still using punts, and I'll tell you the price of a pint is a lot cheaper. We could do with the 1975 era house prices in particular. Chris Haney Lang is saying a sad day filled with love and memories. Yes, exactly, Chris. Exactly right. Sad, but joyful celebration at the same time, if that makes sense. Richard tells us it's been an especially cold winter in the Catskills. Hasn't been above 0 Celsius in weeks, so the snow isn't melting. Happy Imbolg. Wow. I hope you're getting plenty of pictures, Richard, plenty of nice photographs, because I'm sure after a while you'll be thinking it'll be the height of summer, it'll be hot days, sun up in the sky, scorching down, and you'll be going, snow seems like such a distant memory now. Linda Bird is saying 2 Celsius now in sunny Maryland after 6-inch snowfall with 2 inches of sleet on top Sunday a week ago. First time above 0 in 9 days. Hey, I shouldn't complain about being cold. I mean, it's cold, damp and miserable day here. The sort of day where you just want to wrap up in a blanket and not look out. I pity people who have outdoor jobs in this kind of weather. But hey, it's all comparative, right? The grass is not always, but regularly greener on the other side. And thanks, Linda, for the hugs. Mariana Dunn says Banachty, Dear Tua, and Anthony from Alexandria, Virginia, where we have snowcrete from a winter storm last week. So I'm guessing that's like snow that's like concrete. It's been compressed down and hardened, so that it's more like ice now. It's really hard. Careful out there if you're going out in it. I read one of the books. I intended to do a little bit of talk about some acquisitions to the Mythical Ireland Library. But one of the books that I picked up, I couldn't walk away from it. I wasn't going to, but then because it's so big, I haven't got the space for it. The Cultures of Native North Americans. And one of the things that I saw in it, of course, now, as soon as I need to find it, because I didn't mark the page or bookmark the page, I won't be able to find it. But there was a photograph of probably from one of the Alaskan or North Canadian native peoples, of snowshoes. Let me see if I can find it. You're a patient bunch. It's the strangers, not the strangers, but the people who stumble upon these episodes afterwards when they're watching them as a video that complain about how I don't get to the subject matter for half an hour. And I'm always saying, well, this is the idea of the live stream, that they began during the pandemic when everyone was locked down, and they were a lovely way to connect with people. And we've continued that social aspect of it ever since. Everybody gets a hello. There's conversation back and forth between people so that, people feel they're part of a community. What can I say? I'm nearly having to say that on every live stream now, so that when it becomes a video afterwards, somebody doesn't come on and complain. Let me see if there's any mention of snow or snowshoes in the index, which might make it easier to find. Probably not. What's the bet? A fabulous book. I don't know. I have some kind of mysterious affinity with the Native Americans. It's not that mysterious, really. Ireland was colonized for the best part of 800 years. So there is an affinity. During the famine, the Choctaw Nation sent money to Ireland to relieve the famine or the effects of it. Snowshoe, 92, 93, 122, 196. Let me see. This is a huge book. You need a big desk to handle it. There we go. Look at them. Frame snowshoes of the Eastern Subarctic, circa 1880. And they look like tennis rackets, Amazing stuff. I always say, I think that human beings, certainly of the past, maybe not of the 21st century, we've become too used to conveniences. And without those conveniences, we'd be lost. Warm, dry, heated homes, fresh linen, blankets, clothes, food, running water, toilets that flush, all that stuff. But I find it remarkable, some of the people who lived in the harshest environments and yet were able to survive and thrive to an extent, But anyway, Mariana, you prompted my showing that picture because perhaps you and others may have to fashion some snowshoes to go outside before too long. So I'm officially being told to get well oiled, says Lily. Yeah. Now there's another meaning that could be taken to that phrase. I didn't say get well oiled. I said, spray some WD-40 on your joints. Yeah, definitely don't ingest it. Yeah. Nice to hear Ireland has WD-40. It's universal, like duct tape. Yeah, duct tape. Somebody throws it at you and you have to duck. Sorry. I couldn't resist. I went to a UB40 tribute band called WD-40. Yeah, they were a bit stiff at first, but they loosened up after a while. Desiree Riley is in the house, says, Hello to all the Tua. Glad Finn is doing well and sorry for your loss. Amadeus has been enjoying all the extra time with his mama, and I'm looking forward to this new chapter in my life and taking the opportunity to explore new jobs and the possibility to relocate. So you could become, apparently, Desiree, a permanent fixture with the Tua de Denver, is what I'm hearing. Yeah, well, the best of luck with it all. As I said to you, I think it was last week, one door closes, another door opens. Yeah, that was what my late grandfather used to say. He said, Anthony, one door opens, another closes. He was a lovely man, terrible cabinet maker. Sorry, I couldn't resist. Nancy Wells Brewer is saying, hello, hi to all the Tua from sunny Orinda in California. We expect some rain later on next weekend. I left my scarf outside for St. Brigid. Hope she keeps me well. Keeping you in my best thoughts, Anthony. Well, thank you very much, Nancy. Much appreciated those lovely sentiments. And yes, hopefully she will bless you with a very good and healthy year. Kathy May Deo says, good day, Mr. Anthony, and all the Tua. You and your family are in my thoughts, Mr. Anthony, on the loss of your auntie. Well, thank you very much, Kathy May. Greatly appreciated. And Tom Lawler also, thank you indeed. From the Devil's Bit in County Tipperary. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the part of Ireland where the devil was said to have bitten a chunk out of the mountainside and spat it off out into the plain where it became the Rock of Cashel. We Irish, we just love stories. In Ireland, when we lose someone, it's not a time to be too sad, but to tell stories and celebrate the fact that they were such a big part of our lives. Yeah, exactly. And there were some moments over the past couple of days, but yesterday at the Requiem Mass in particular, a couple of moments of levity. And believe it or not, after we laid her to rest at the graveside, there were even a couple of jokes. See, it's a thing that kind of runs in the family. Not the only one in my extended Murphy family who enjoys cheesy one-liners, dad jokes, and puns. Just put it that way. Amanda June is saying, hello, I'm here. Yay. Hello, Amanda. We're also here. How are you? Greetings. Happy Imbolg Eve. Michael Pike is saying, Anthony and Mighty Tua, greetings. Very enthusiastic, Michael, as always. Good afternoon to you. Snowcrete, says Amanda June, is what you drive on in the mountain passes and the interior of British Columbia. It's sometimes better to drive on depending on conditions and your tires. Yeah. We don't generally, touch wood again when I'm saying this, we don't generally have to change tires for the winter in Ireland, but I know there's many parts of the world where people wouldn't dream of trying to get through the winter without winter tires. Janet says, you got me through the pandemic with the live stream. Yeah, I think it helped a lot of us. And sure, look, that's the vein in which we've continued. Try and lift people's spirits and connect people across the world. I used to tune into the show during the pandemic after the live broadcast, and I appreciated every minute of it. Glad I could be here for the lives now, though. Never unhappy with the chat. There you go. Well, now, 1975. How am I still there? A complete lack of awareness, woefully out of touch with popular culture, but not a dinosaur, and generally bumbling through life, sort of. Yeah, copy and paste, Alan. Copy and paste. I was born in 1974. So, yeah, I'm not a technophobe. I would always have called myself a technophile, but I am still woefully out of touch with it all. And as for the, what would you call it, etiquette and lingo of modern social media, let's say I feel young, except for when I'm in conversation with my kids and their peers, and then I'm listening and I'm like, I haven't a clue what they were talking about just there. The Native Americans, says Chris Haney Lang, feel an affinity with the Irish. They have had snowshoes forever. I went snowshoeing once, says Amanda June. It's kind of deceptive. You think you're walking on firm ground, and then suddenly you sit down to take a break and fall through 6 feet of snow. Oh, that was a squeaker, WD-40. Yeah, boom, boom, right? Evanway Millward is saying hello from Wales. Hope everyone's well. Thinking of you and your family after your loss, Anthony. Bit of sleet and snow here today. Looking forward to warmer weather. But it's above zero, so I'm happy. Celebrate the little victories, Evanway. And remember, another very important thing. It's noticeable now. There is a stretch in the evening. So it was about 10 to 6 this evening. And remember, it was very overcast here. Very overcast. It's either overcast or it's not, Anthony. It was overcast here. And it wasn't quite dark. And by the end of February, it'll be getting dark around 7 o'clock instead of 6 o'clock. Remember, 6 weeks ago at winter solstice, it was getting dark at 5 o'clock. We'll get back to the astronomy and the stretching of the days. Remind me to come back to that after we say hello to everyone. Claire, is it Siter? I don't know how to pronounce that, Claire. Listening in from Fort Smith, Arkansas. Good afternoon to you, Claire, and welcome to the Mythical Ireland Library. Don't think we've seen you before. We may have, but you're very welcome. I hope you enjoy not just the live stream, but indeed the chat with all the others. Yes, and Desiree, one of our Mythflix's biggest fans for many reasons, and a lady who has felt very directly the beautiful impact of all of the bringing together of people. Bradley Luberto is, I think, also a newcomer, saying, upstate New York, USA, a very good afternoon to you from a cold and damp and breezy Boyne Valley here in the east of Ireland. Hope you're well, and thank you for joining us. Monica Regley is saying, good morning from New Zealand. What? No way. Well, you're well-travelled these days. You never know where you're going to pop up. Happy Wednesday to you, Monica. So, not at home in Switzerland, obviously. Aotearoa, the land of the long white cloud indeed. Wow, brilliant stuff. Must be early there. Yeah, very good morning. Happy day. Mythical Ireland made the pandemic tolerable, says Michael. The only complaint that people had back then was that the live streams weren't long enough. And they were on every day for the first 5 months or so. Amanda June says, I was born in 1974 too. Amanda June, we're like a fine wine. We're of a very good vintage, you know, and getting better with age, I would say. Too true. Mythical Ireland got us through dark times. Nice for people to say that. It's dark here by 5 p.m. still, I'm sure. Yeah, but like if you're indoors now, you'd have the lights on. Like, I'm not saying it was still bright at 10 to 6, but what I'm saying is there's still brightness in the sky. And yeah, it's going to become a lot more noticeable now over the next few weeks. Racing forward, or the expansion of the daylight. Lauren Thomas says, here from Delaware. A very good afternoon to you, Lauren. Again, I'm not sure if you've joined us before, but you're very welcome to Live Irish Myths, and hope you're having a nice day over there in Delaware. It's cold, wet, and windy here in the Boyne Valley. Claire Sider, good job on the name pronunciation. I'm a McBride from Stackallan. No way! Living here for a good many years. Always great to catch a live stream. Stackallan, between Slane and Navan, closer to Slane than Navan, I think. Yeah, wow. And of course, Claire, yeah, thanks for filling us in. McBride, I wonder if you have any connection to Sean McBride. Drogheda Railway Station is called McBride Railway Station. He was involved, wasn't he, in 1916? Stackallan has its own late Neolithic henge. Yes, indeed it does. Up there near that, the pub. It's behind the pub. when you're going the back road between Slane and Kells. Oh, what's the name of the pub? Past it so. I've never been in it. Not much of a drinker. What is the name of the pub? Is that Gorman Lock? Is it? No, am I getting confused here? Yeah, I have to use Google Maps. I have to cheat. And my system seems to be slow. Yeah, Gorman Lock. Indeed is the name of the place. But what's the name of the pub? Ryan's. Ryan's of Gorman Lock. So if you take the road from there up or south towards the main Drogheda Slane Road, the N51, not far behind that pub, by about 500 metres on the crest of the hill, there is a late Neolithic henge, a monument that was probably built about 4,500 to 5,000 years ago. Don't change, Anthony, says Alan. You'll thank yourself for it. For my birth date, not 1975, but 1957. Just a reversal of numbers with a few aches and pains added. No complaints, though. I'll shut up now. Don't worry. Yeah. It's all uphill from here, as they say. None of us is getting any younger. So Amanda June is saying that my grandmother used to flip her age around. When she was 73, she declared she was 37. Lauren Thomas says, I have learned so much from your site. Brilliant. And don't forget, when you're on the website, mythicalireland.com, subscribe to the free email newsletter. And if you'd like to support the Mythical Ireland project, subscribe to the Patreon. And if you subscribe at the Bronze Age level, which will cost you a miserly, piffling, insubstantial $10 a month, you'll get access to the Mythical Ireland podcasts, among other things. Missing so many weeks of Mythical Ireland stresses me, but we are on the road again. Oh, I'm sure it's so stressful traveling the world, Monica. Oh, how my heart bleeds. Here's a tiny violin. I'm only joking. Come here, listen. The fact that you're trying to keep in touch, even when you're in faraway places, impresses me, especially because the time zones are changing. You're in Wednesday morning. I bet that's really unusual. Early Wednesday morning, you're tuning into Live Irish Myths, you know. Yes, the lock, says Claire. Is that how they refer to Gorman Lock or the pub? The lock. Are you going up to the lock? My relatives live in on Carraroa or Carraroe. Is in the county of Galway, I'm pretty sure, isn't it? Lauren, yeah, brilliant stuff. The area is Gorman Lock. Used to go to the ring fort, as we called it as a kid. Okay. Yeah. Hey, that ain't no ordinary ring fort. That's a very, very special monument. Much more ancient and much more significant. And not that a ring fort isn't significant, but yeah. Documented by my good friend, Dr. Geraldine Stout, who much earlier in her career as an archaeologist published a thesis about the embanked enclosures of the Boyne region. And that was one of the many that she documented. A Stachallan. And there must have been Neolithic settlement along the Boyne between Slane and Navan, because of course the major concentration is on Brunabonia, which is between Slane and Drogheda. But if you go further upstream at Ardmolken during I think it was the 1970s, there was some megalithic art found on, I think, 2 stones. So there was probably something there by way of a passage tomb that had been destroyed or partly destroyed at some point in the past. Enough on the yob. Is that supposed to say dob? D-O-B? No. Says me, from 1948. Again, a good vintage, Janet, you know. Like a fine wine, gets better with age. I listened to another of your podcasts today. Well worth the Patreon spend, says Amanda June. I also made my sub 1 year. Love the content. Brilliant. Yeah, so you can subscribe for a month. And if you don't like what you see, you can unsubscribe. But if you like what you see, you can pay for the whole year, so you don't have to be charged monthly. and I think it works out a little bit more conveniently. Anyway, before we get going on the subject matter, well, kind of on the matter of the subject, yeah, this is an interesting one. So, if you're new, you won't know this, but if you watch enough episodes and view some of the previous ones, you'll get to know fairly quickly that I am a bibliophile. I love books. You can see that behind me. The evidence of it is there to be seen. The house is full of books, and I'm always getting more. But I received in the post today a book that is exactly appropriate to the time of the year and the day that's in it. And it's called Brigid, A Woman Born to be a Saint, a Goddess Destined to Rise, by Kim Curran. A beautifully written and powerful exploration of one of the most fascinating women in Irish myth, says Caroline Leigh. Kim Curran is a must-read for anyone who's interested in Irish mythology, says Shauna Lawless. In a wild, ancient grove, at the edge of winter, a desperate girl begs for her freedom. No one has ever listened to Brigid's prayers, but this time a goddess answers with a vision of a new faith for Ireland, a vision of sisterhood, of sanctuary, of just what powers women can hold when they come together. So it's a novel, and I imagine would be something of a dramatized version of the Brigid that we know. And here's the thing. I did not order or buy this book. And I've had some trouble convincing my good lady wife of this. She would be well what's the word? She would be well founded. No, she would be, I can't think of what I'm trying to say, which is a terrible thing that I suffer from for a wordsmith, that sometimes the word that I'm thinking of just won't come. Justified. She would be well justified in suspecting. But the thing is, it came with what looks like just a little bit of a press release, and it's Penguin Random House who sent it. I can only assume that it's what they would call a review copy, and that they're hoping I will maybe either read it and review it, or at least give it a mention. Well, there's a mention of it. That's something you might be interested in. I think, by the way they're speaking on here, Kim Curran is a new author, that she hasn't been published before, if I'm not mistaken. Kim Curran was born in Dublin and grew up in London. She holds a degree in philosophy and literature from Sussex University, and is a freelance creative director and Royal Literary Fund Fellow. So yeah, this may, I think, be her first book. But a beautiful cover, I think you'll agree. Really nicely done. But arrived in the post mysteriously. As I say, it's not often a book arrives here that I either haven't purchased or ordered, or somebody hasn't sent me with my agreement, you know. Have you ever visited the raised area at Gernonstown Cemetery? I don't think so, Claire. Gernonstown is, yeah, I know someone who lives there. Yeah, so there's a few interesting things in that vicinity. I'm just looking here on the old. There's a ring fort. There's a barrow. There's a couple of barrows, which would be Bronze Age, and then the graveyard. Yeah, I must actually take a trip out there. It's not far away. It's about a 20-minute drive from here, so I must do. Now let me just catch up, make sure that I'm not missing anybody. Desiree says, I'm definitely looking to possibly become permanent to a Denver local, but not limiting myself to any exact location yet. Only limiting factor is my mosquito allergy. So who knows where I'll end up. It's exciting to explore all options. An open door, Desiree. Yeah. Oh, year of birth. Yes, sorry, Janet Yob. I should have copped that on and I didn't. Oh, yay. New book. Nice. Every time I show a new book, I know Lexi Erickson and Barbara Murphy in particular. Now, they're not on today because I think the jewelry show or whatever it's called, the gem show that's on there for a month is just finished today. So they're probably packing up and heading off. But every time I mention a book, they're like, ooh, I need that. Oh, not her first book, says Amanda June. Looks like she started writing in the pandemic. This new book was just published in January, so they're trying a marketing push. Ah, yeah, well, that makes sense. What else have I got in my little... Yeah, I thought this was an interesting one I hadn't seen before. Goddesses in Every Woman, Powerful Archetypes in Women's Lives by Jean Shinoda Bolin, MD. And that seems to have originally been published quite a while ago, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, copyright originally 1985. 41 years ago this year. It's all based around the goddesses of classical mythology. Athena and Hera, Athena and Artemis and Hestia and etc. Excuse me. Just thought it was interesting. Got it secondhand. Didn't cost much. Got another copy of The Golden Bough. I'll be flogging that one. I had a bit of a book sale the other day on Instagram, and a lot of those were snapped up fairly quickly. But that one will be also offered because that's a brilliant book. I have 2 copies of it here in the Mythical Ireland Library. A concise history of Irish art by Bruce Arnold, and I was delighted, of course, as you would expect any book about the history of Irish art. I was delighted to see in the first chapter a photograph of the entrance curbstone at Newgrange. Circa 3000 BC, and now we know actually circa 3200 BC, so even a little bit older again. That book first published in, I don't know when, because it doesn't. Oh, hang on. Oh, all the way back in 1969. And again in 1977, revised edition, and a reprint in 2002. So that's a slightly older one as well. And I showed you the tribes. These ones are still for sale. Charles Squire, you'll have heard me mention on many episodes. And in fact, am I right in saying, says you, how would we know? You tell us. Some of you are watching the very first episode of Live Irish Myths on the 12th of March, 2020. Live. I think the very first episode of Live Irish Myths was reading from Charles Squire. Again, that's for sale. Prices are on Instagram. And this one, I'm surprised this one wasn't snapped up because it's one, again, that has been mentioned on many occasions. And I have, I believe I have 2 copies of it here, which means I don't need it. But The Story of the Irish Race by Seamus McManus. A beautiful hardback book with a green Wibbelin cover and gold inlay on the lettering on the spine and a dust jacket. And that is a very comprehensive book running to over 700 pages. And it's an old book, but it was like originally published over a century ago, I think. 1921. And this is a more modern facsimile reprint. It's a little bit faded. The paper's a bit faded, but it's not stained in any way. There's no dog ears. It's quite flawless. So, yeah, there you go. Oh, don't do that, Anthony. Definitely don't want to throw them around the place. Can't believe it's 45 minutes in and we still haven't gotten to the subject. Now, there will be impatient people watching the video back afterwards. Yes, now. I just finished listening to The Land Speak by Moncon McGann. Got it after I watched you and him on an interview on YouTube. Yeah, and I have my own copy signed by Moncon. Really hard to believe that he's gone from us. Yeah, beautiful book. Just making sure I'm not missing anything else. Gem Show, says Michael. Yeah, Gem Show. Yeah, the Tucson Gem Show. Deborah Gilbert is here. I finally made it live. Hello, everyone. Greetings from frozen Connecticut. A lot of people are quite cold at the moment, Deborah. Yeah. Yeah, so we've probably covered this subject every year since the beginning of the pandemic. But it's a refresher and a reminder, um, uh, particularly about this whole discussion that is much less a scholarly thing than it is a sort of a modern development. The idea that Saint Brigid, said to have lived in the 5th century and been a, what do you call it when somebody lives in the same era as someone else? Compatriot? No, she lived in the same era as St. Patrick and they knew each other. Legend has it that they're both buried in Downpatrick in the same grave on the hill of Downpatrick in County Down. Yeah, so there's the Saint Brigid, and of course, she is immensely familiar to Irish people, and Irish people, particularly those of the faith, and remember, it's not that long ago in my lifetime since a majority of Irish people were devout Catholics. So for Irish Catholics, Bridget has a very special place in their heart. She had uh, um, a name, a title. What do you call it? Not a pseudonym, a sobriquet. Muireann Nail, the Mary of the Irish. Her story was preserved in the hagiographies, Cogitosis, etc. And her life seems to have been full of miracles. And she seems to have been a very single-minded individual, strong, powerful woman who stood up to power and misogyny. Credited with founding the great monastery of Kildare, which for centuries afterwards, by the way, was so powerful that it vied with Armagh for this wasn't Brigid's doing. She just founded it. She was no part of its later history, apart from her historical attachment to the place, particularly in the centuries where Kildare and Armagh were vying to be the see or the headquarters, as it were, of the Catholic faith in Ireland. So she's a fascinating woman, and there's lots written about her, and there are lots of books about her. But then, if you dig deep enough, you find there's an entirely different woman called Brigid, who was a pre-Christian figure and is strongly connected with the Tuatha De Danann through her father, the Dagda, who's said to have been her father. And we've spoken about the Dagda many, many times on too many episodes of Live Irish Myths to count or to try to even guess at. But of course, he's very strongly connected with Sheedon Broga or Newgrange as its builder and its owner in the mythology, particularly of the Dinshenachas. A contemporary, thank you. Yes, people, yes, loads of people helping me with that. Oh, I know. Another example of it, where I know the word and it's in there, but getting it to travel from there down to here seems to be the difficulty. But yeah, there is very, very little that we know about her. Now, If you go onto the old Google machine, uh, or God forbid you use uh, AI, AI in terms of trying to research history, mythology, archaeology in Ireland, be very, very, very careful with it. Do not rely on it, and do not copy and paste from AI thinking this is the story. But also social media. And again, Michael Fortune on folklore.ie, and he is a great Facebook page that's well worth following. Is somebody who speaks about this quite often. There's a lot of what we would call in Ireland, pardon the turn of phrase, there's a lot of shite on the internet. Uh, Copied and pasted stuff with no um, footnotes, no sources cited. That is half of it made up and not based on anything that we can either say from documented history or even from folklore. But there is a claim that I'd be inclined to go along with, but for there is a claim that the Christian Brigid was an attempt by the church to basically create a Christian version of this pre-Christian deity, this pre-Christian figure. I hesitate to use the word pagan at all times. As you know, if you've been watching these episodes and you've read my books, you'll see that it's a word that I try to avoid using because it comes with certain connotations, because it was used as a pejorative word for centuries by the church to describe the people who came before or the people who don't subscribe to Christian beliefs, and also because there is a modern pagan movement. And while some of those people are quite sound, some of them are on flights of fancy when it comes to the material that they uh, purvey or propagate online. So, what do we know about the pre-Christian Brigid? And almost everything we know about her is contained in a short paragraph from a very, very well-known work dating to the 9th century, which is called Sanas Cormac or Cormac's Glossary, well known to scholars, um, penned by the bishop and king of Cashel. Yes, he was a bishop and a king. Wow, no separation of powers back then. And I'll read that to you in a moment. Valentina Bernardi is saying, "Good evening from Glastonbury and blessed Imbolg to all." Glastonbury, one of those, by coincidence, one of those places. And you know that Glastonbury is in England, right, in Somerset. Glastonbury, a place that claims to have a very strong connection with both St. Brigid and St. Patrick. There is a belief in Glastonbury that the Irish St. Patrick was buried in the grounds of Glastonbury Abbey. There is a townland or a place near Wearyall Hill in Glastonbury that is called Beckery, which is an anglicisation of Bug Era, which means small Ireland or little Ireland. And apparently that's where Brigid stayed when she was in Glastonbury. Now we're talking about Saint Brigid, the Christian saint here. Internet shite is growing seemingly out of control, says Michael. Yeah, and AI isn't helping, but it's not, we can't blame AI. It's the same as we can't blame social media. It's how they're used, and it's how they're also controlled by the people who own them to make money. So social media as an experiment has proven the best of humanity and the worst all together. And AI is the same. AI could be put to some fabulous uses, curing diseases, for instance. And there's been a lot of talk in archaeology about how AI can actually help to identify previously unknown monuments by analyzing aerial imagery or satellite imagery. But we all know that people just get lazy. They just go, right, I want to know about this. When we were kids, if you wanted to know about something, most houses in Ireland, I presume it was the same in Britain, I'm not sure about the States, but most houses in Ireland had a collection of Encyclopedia Britannica or something similar. Long before computers and Google and smartphones, if you wanted to find out something, you had to read it in a book or in a newspaper or a magazine. But now we just go AI, ChatGPT, or Google. You tell us I want to know about such and such, and it gives you an AI history of it, and you think, oh, that's brilliant, great, I'll copy and paste that. But I can tell you, as somebody who has used Google's AI and ChatGPT and use.ai and all those, that you absolutely have to double check that everything in there is accurate, because oftentimes it isn't all accurate. The curse of being born in 1974. The words just don't come as easy as they used to. Believe it or not, this is a lifelong thing, Amanda. I think my thought process and my vocalization process get disconnected because there's so much going on. And, I think I might be on the spectrum somewhere too, but I've never been tested for that. Helena Breen, thank you very much for your comment, and a very good evening to you, and thank you for joining us on episode 360. Just trying to follow this. Oh, yeah, so this is Sanos Cormac's glossary, and he has an entry about Brigid. Now, remember, Cormac was a bishop. Remember, he was a churchman. Remember, he was a Christian. He was a man who cherished holy knowledge. And it's surprising, nay, perhaps even shocking, therefore, that the entry about Brigid in his glossary is not at all about Saint Brigid of Kildare, but is in fact about Brigid the goddess. So, as I said a little while ago, and I'm just catching up on it now, I have to connect these things and make sure I stay on point, which is difficult when you're someone like me and there's a million things going around in that head, but there's only one set of sentences coming out here. Yeah, this is basically all we know about Brigid, with a couple of other references, but this is the main one. Brigid, he spells her name Brigit, Brigid. In the 20th century, Brigid is not such a popular name now. It was obviously back in the days when people were quite religious in Ireland. You know, Patrick was a very, very common first name, and Brigid, you know, and others, Gerard, St. Gerard, Magella, etc. But it was usually spelt Bridget or Brigid. Brigid, i.e., a poetess, daughter of the Dagda. This is Brigid, the female sage, or woman of wisdom, i.e., Brigid, the goddess, whom poets adored, because very great and very famous was her protecting care. It is therefore they call her goddess of poets by this name. Fascinating stuff. Whose sisters were Brigid, the female physician, in brackets, woman of leechcraft, Brigid, the female smith, in brackets, woman of smithwork, from whose names, with all Irishmen, a goddess was called Brigid. And then Cormac indulges in what scholars would say is one of his linguistic flights of fancy, where he imagines a pseudo etymology for the name. Brigid, then, bro agit, BREO-AIGIT, or bro hagit, SHAIGIT, meaning a fiery arrow. And of course, SHAIGIT is a lenited version of Saget, which sounds very like a Gaelicization of a Latin word, sagitta, meaning arrow. And this is, I think, one of the main reasons that linguists and etymologists would say this is a made-up etymology, or a pseudo-etymology. There was a tribe, a Celtic tribe called the Brigantia. And there was an Old Norse deity called Bragi, Bragi. The name the Dagda, as to whom see infra sv rua roesa, Siegfried thought was borrowed from Latin doctus, as augtor from octor, legtor, and lector. Yeah, but why not then the Dagda? Would rather regard as genuine Celtic part pass, meaning doctus. Yeah. Anyway, we're getting too deep into it there. So that's it. That's there's not much that we know about Brigid, but you will see, as I said, if you do a Google search, you'll see all sorts of wild, fanciful, and detailed claims about this pre-Christian Brigid. But the documentary evidence for her just isn't there. Now, she was first and foremost a patron of the poets, a patron saint rather than a paying patron of or supporter of poets, but also smithcraft and healing. And we see in her the fact that Cormac tells us that there were 3 Brigids of the same name, brings us back to this old idea of triplicate deities, which is certainly pre-Christian, and in my view, not just prehistoric, but quite ancient. And examples of those would be Banba, Fola, and Eru, the triune of guardian goddesses of Ireland when the Milesians arrived. At the same time, the triplicate high kings of the Tuatha Dé Danann, Macol, Macecht, and Magrania. And then you've suggestions like Macha, Morrigan, and Bow, all being versions of the same goddess. And then you have Cailleach, Bui, and one other who I can't immediately think of. There's a suggestion that they were 3 versions of the same thing. And even at Brunabonia, you have several goddesses. And you wonder whether the different stories are just relating the same goddess, but just with different names. So, for instance, Brunabonia can be translated as the womb of Bowen. But just west of Newgrange in the Dunchenicus, it describes the paps of Morrigan, Mór Rion, which basically means the great queen. And she was a concubine, a mate, a partner, I don't think a spouse of the Dagda in some myths. And there's reference in the Dunchenicus to Dagda having slept with Mór Rion, but he also slept with Bowen. So again, this is why I'm talking about the possibility of more than one goddess in one goddess, as it were. That's Reggae Rocker 22. I'm sorry for the loss of your lovely auntie. I hope you and your family draw close to each other and get each other through this tough time. Yeah, and that's another wonderful. It's a sad time for people, family, to be getting together, but it is also, there's a loveliness to it because we're all together at the same time and getting closer, as it were. Michael Trott has joined us. Both Greenlands, Ireland and New Zealand have been having some rain and floods of late. Wow, is there flooding down there too? Monica Regley, whose home place is Switzerland, is there. She said hello already earlier from New Zealand. I hope the flooding isn't too bad and not causing any major disruption. And of course, principally, no loss of life, Michael. But a very good morning to you. Happy Wednesday to you from all of us in Tuesday. Now, there's another peculiar thing, which is Imbolg. Ending in a G, by the way. I often put the C at the end of it, but the scholars of Old and Middle Irish would say, no, it was definitely a G. Imbolg is also mentioned in Cormac's glossary, and he tells us that it was from Eo's milk and signified the beginning of spring. Oimelg, Eo milk, that is the time that sheep's milk comes. Melag e milk, because it is milked. And of course, this is the beginning of spring. And how would you denote that? How would you know it was the beginning of spring in prehistoric times? Before the Julian calendar, before the Gregorian calendar, before this idea of putting names on days and grouping them into weeks and grouping them into months, how would you tell the time? And of course, the answer is you would tell the time, as many cultures did around the world, by the sun and the moon and the stars. The natural calendar, the calendar that nature gave us. So what happens at Imbolg? Yes, astronomically, the idea of a cross-quarter day falling. So the idea, again, propounded all over the place on the internet and on social media, and including by myself, is that there was this idea of an 8-spoked wheel of the year, as it were. If you imagine a circle and one, these lines radiating from the center, marking the 8 feasts: winter solstice, Imbolc, vernal equinox, Bealtaine, summer solstice, Lunasa, autumn equinox, Samhain. There's 8. The idea being that there was 2 solstices, summer and winter, and they're very obvious because that's when the sun's rising and setting position stops moving on the horizon. And halfway between those, the equinoxes. And how do you determine the equinox in prehistory? I have at least one comprehensive article about that on the Mythical Ireland website. What did equinox mean to a Neolithic astronomer? Certainly, you cannot say, that's when day and night are equal in length. Because remember, you can't count the minutes or hours of daylight and nighttime in the Neolithic because you don't have a clock, right? So that's a modern concept. The sun rises due east and sets due west. How exactly? Yeah, it's probably closer to it. And what's the other one? Day and night are equal length. Sun rises and sets due east and due west. Of course, the one that we can rely on is the halfway point in days between the solstices. Those 3 things don't all happen on the same day. The sun rising due east and falling due west, the exact equal daylight and nighttime, and the halfway point in days between solstices, they don't all necessarily arrive on the same day or 2 days, one in March and one in September. But the idea is that they are the 4 main spokes of the wheel, as it were, the solstices and the equinoxes. But then you further divide those into, instead of having a pizza sliced into 4 big quarters, you have a pizza sliced into 8 segments. And I'm reminded of the Father Ted scene when Father Ted asks Father Dougal, "Dougal, do you want your pizza divided into 6 or 8 slices?" And Dougal says, "Oh, 6, Ted. I could never manage 8. So, Simon Chute of Monumental Ireland has been querying the origin of the idea of the cross-quarter dates. And he can't find much evidence that it goes further back than the 20th century, believe it or not. And I like Simon, and I like the way he investigates things. And yeah, it seems to be that the idea that Brigid's Day and Imbolg are connected, i.e., Brigid's Day might just have been a Christianization of an older pagan or pre-Christian festival, is a fairly modern one, evidentially, where the evidence is concerned. However, that comes with a very substantial caveat, which is this. Yeah, the evidence is thin on the ground, if not almost non-existent. But we know that the history of the church is full of that, of the Christianization of pagan festivals. And so good examples of that in Ireland. St. John's Eve, St. John's Day is the 24th of June, St. John's Eve the 23rd, when bonfires were lit to celebrate midsummer. 2 days after formal astronomical midsummer on the 21st of June, Christmas and winter solstice. Oh, the birth of a new sun. Wow, that's all Newgrange. The sun god was born in a cave, I mean, just the parallels are phenomenal. Even St. Patrick's Day and spring equinox. I mean, Patrick's Day is celebrated. St. Patrick's Day is celebrated on the 17th of March. Vernal equinox often happens on the 20th of March. Yeah, you know. Just before I just saw a couple of new comments flashing in. Willie Ford is saying a hi from Delvin, Westmeath, near the centre of Ireland. That's trying it on there, Willie, now. Delvin is this side of Mullingar. What are you talking about? Near. Define near. I'm joking. I'm going to have you on. And Willie, a brilliant photographer who regularly, pretty much all the time when there's something on at Ishnock, Willie's up there documenting it with his fabulous photography. C.E. Phelan says, apologies for the late arrival. I was born late. My deepest condolences on your aunt's passing. Thank you very much for the condolences. And hey, listen, don't worry about being late. And again, for anybody who misses the first part or even misses the whole thing, as soon as we finish broadcasting this evening, the live stream will be available as a video, so you can watch it back. So glad my son didn't see Anthony's hand movement then. Looked like he was making the sign of the cross. Son already thinks he's a priest. If I'd lived in a different age, I'd probably... Moncon used to say this. He was fairly convinced if he'd lived in medieval times, he probably would have been a monk in a monastery. Because they liked books and learning and all that stuff, Michael Trott is saying hello to Monica. Our national holiday is on this Friday, Waitangi Day. Events across the Motu, unfinished sentence or something. I'd rather have my pizza split in 4. I'd never manage 6, lol, says Burr. No, Lily, yes, I'm not even going to say that. Let's just say that the mythologizing of figures didn't cease with the arrival of the church. You'd be a monk, says Helena. Sure, look, I probably would, We can see you as one. Yeah, but I would have been of the ilk of Sean on the late Sean O'Dynn of Glenstall Abbey, who was a monk, right, with the Benedictine order, but who was known by his fellow monks as the Druid. I would have been intensely interested in all these things that the church calls pagan, The Wiccans really hammered out the idea of the 8 festivals. The Wheel of the Year is modern invention, but the festivals and the astronomical significance is definitely old. Yeah, well, it coincides, of course, with some astronomical alignments, such as the Mount of the Hostages on the hill of Tara, which over the next couple of mornings will be lit, if clouds part for long enough, will be lit by the rising sun. So you have that whole astronomical connection appearing to support the idea that this and the other cross-quarter festivals are very ancient. But of course, how do we prove that? And the answer is we can't. But I am intrigued about the idea that the idea of the cross-quarter days, as they were extrapolated by, for instance, the late Martin Brennan in his work about the astronomical interpretation of megalithic art. It is interesting because you have to acknowledge that it is not, in fact, founded on a long, unceasing or unbroken, tradition. But then you go to Sanas Cormac, and in the 9th century, the cross-quarter, what we call the cross-quarter festivals, are mentioned as significant events in the calendar. So you're inclined to think, well, they're already 12 centuries old. And Christianity at that stage is less than 5 centuries old. They probably, in all likelihood, have pre-Christian and prehistoric origins. I think that's about as far as we could go. If you were making a case based entirely on evidence, you would say, the cross-quarter dates go back to the 20th century. You would say that there were 4 festivals called Imbolg, Bealtaine, Lunasa, and Samhain, which are definitely much older. You would say that there are passage tombs, particularly at Loughcrew and Tara, with alignments towards sunrises and sunsets at those times of the year. However, the reason that's a bit difficult is because they're not that precisely aligned. Yeah, the sun rises and sets into them at those times of the year, but for several weeks either side of them as well. So you know, it's good to ask the questions and not just to fall into the trap of absolutely believing without enough evidence that they definitely are. Always, as with most of this stuff, and I think I've treated it fairly in my own work. You're going on the basis of likelihood, possibility, probability. You're building a circumstantial case. You're saying this plus this possibly leads to this. But what you shouldn't do, and what an awful lot of modern websites and social media, there's so many what look like bot accounts and AI accounts being set up and being recommended to me all the time. And I'm sure you find the same thing. And big long articles making all sorts of wild claims. And you're going, where'd you get that from? And there's no sources. There's absolutely no references whatsoever to where this information came from. And people are joining these pages and following these groups, or joining these groups and following these pages and sharing and going, yeah, this is my Irish heritage, you know. Very little evidence for it, actually, you know. So, you know me, I like the evidence. There's the documentary evidence, so that's why I have a big library. But then there's the visual. You know, you have to witness these things for yourself, as I have done at Loughcrew on many occasions, watched sunrises and sunsets aligned with those monuments and gone, this is interesting. It does look like there could be a connection. Does that mean there is? I don't know. I think that's a bridge too far. Anthony Hopkins and Michael Caine. I believe you had yet another public holiday on Monday. You guys have so many. Yeah, well, that was a new one, Joe. St. Brigid's Day. That was only inaugurated a few years ago. And the first public holiday in Ireland that is in celebration of a woman or a female, because the others tend to be more male focused. And it would be great to see you, Joe. I hope you're in good form. And we are on the cusp of what we call Imbolg, which is, at least in the 9th century, we have documentary evidence that it was the beginning of spring. So something astronomical that happens. So the reason I'm mentioning Joe is he's in Australia. So you're now at the end of the maximum height of the sun in your summer. And so now you're heading into your autumn, whereas we're ending that minimum declination of the sun, that period when the sun has been low in the sky, and we're entering our spring. And this is the peculiar thing about the cross-quarter days. They do coincide with very obvious changes in the heavenly movements. When the sun's movement either starts picking up in speed or slows down. And I've said on numerous occasions on these live streams and in some of my written work that the cross-quarter days bracket the solstices and equinoxes. The sun moves fastest. I'm talking about its daily movement on the horizon. If you watch the eastern horizon over the course of a year, you'll see that the sun does not move from northeast to east to southeast back to east again in a continuous movement. It's fastest in the middle and slowest at the edges. It stops at the solstices. It's like a pendulum. And the cross-quarter days bracket that in a way that when you're heading, as we are, out of the minimal movement of the sun along the horizon from Samhain through winter solstice until Imbolg, we're now heading into a period where the sun's daily movement picks up speed from Imbolg through the vernal equinox, when it's moving the fastest, as far as Bealtaine, when it slows down again for the beginning of that summer period. And so there's the solstice periods, a 12-week period, basically, centered on winter solstice, or I'm pointing to the northeast here, so I'm thinking summer solstice, centered on summer solstice and centered on winter solstice. There's this 12-week period where the sun's daily movement is slow and comes to a stop in the middle of those periods at the solstices. But then there's these 12-week periods with the equinox at the center of them. In the early part of the year, Imbolg, spring equinox, Bealtaine, and then after summer solstice, we've Lunasa, autumn equinox, Samhain. Those 12-week are a little bit longer than 12 weeks. They're probably closer to 13 weeks. Those periods when the sun's daily movement is much faster. What's going to happen for us in the northern hemisphere now, from now until Bealtaine? Basically, now, while there's been a gradual stretching of the evenings and the mornings over the past few weeks in January, now it's going to become much more pronounced. You'll see it quickening up. You'll see week after week, you'll notice it's brighter quite a lot earlier and getting dark quite a lot later than it had been. And that's because the daily movement of the sun picks up. So there is a definite thing that happens in terms of solar movement that also coincides with things happening to the natural world. Cormac, in the 9th century, in his glossary, Sanus Cormac, brings attention to the fact that Oimelg is related to the ewe's milk. When the lambing is underway or beginning, and the ewes are coming into milk to feed the lambs, a sure sign of spring. At Bealtaine, which is in early May, what happens here, and I've noticed it because I have a lovely weeping beech tree in the front garden, that is the week every year without fail, touch wood, every week without fail, that the week of Bealtaine is the week that the leaves finally burst out of their buds and unfurl, and you see lush, glossy green on the tree for the first time in, I was going to say 6 months since November, but in fact that was when the leaves were dying and falling off. Probably 8 months. The first time in 8 months you're seeing this bright, lush green on the trees. Lunasa, of course, very strong connection there, both in recent folklore and in older mythology, connecting Lunasa with the harvest, when the earth is giving up its fruits, hence the old name for Lunasa, Brone Trogan, the earth sorrows. Because although we are joyful, because we are reaping the harvest, the bounty of the crops that have been growing from spring through summer, and now, of course, with modern agriculture, some of our crops are planted in winter, September and October. You can see why Lunasa was such a major celebration, plus the berries, the bilberries or the blueberries, and others coming onto the bushes. It was a time of great bounty. And then Samhain, which not only marks the end of the harvest, when the earth has gone barren. If you've done things properly and you've taken in your harvest, there's nothing left to harvest. What else happens at Samhain? That is the week, without fail, when the leaves on that tree in my front garden fall off. You could set your watch by it almost, you know. Helena asks, am I sure I'm not an ancient monk? I couldn't at all be sure about that, you know. Anthony, did you say sunset? What did you say? Anthony, did you say sunset? What is that? I don't understand the question, Brendan. I did mention sunsets, all right. So there's a sense here that, you know, we had the imposition of a calendar on us. The Julian calendar, later the Gregorian calendar. And if you think about it, a lot of it doesn't really make sense. It completely ignores the lunar patterns, what happens with the moon. And the moon in pre-modern, pre-mechanized, pre-clock days gave you neat divisions of time. The ones that we ended up calling 7 days or a week or a fortnight, 14 nights of the moon, because from new moon, invisible moon to first half or first quarter is 7 days. From first quarter to full moon is a week, again 7 days or 7 nights, and from there to last quarter is 7 days, and from last quarter to invisible moon again is 7 days. If you go back into early history and especially into prehistory, how did people reckon time? The only way that they knew how, watching the sun every day and seasonally. Where is it rising? Where is it setting? Approximately where does it reach its zenith? And then over the course of the following week, is it declining in height and strength, or is it increasing in height and strength? The moon brilliantly tells you where the sun is, because the full moon is always opposite the sun. So if you can see the sun in above Orion, for instance, the full moon above Orion means it's winter time, because the sun is exactly opposite between Sagittarius and Scorpius at its lowest part of its journey around the sky, what modern astronomers call the ecliptic. And then tying into that, the natural observation of the sun, the moon, and the constellations, the bright stars. Which seasons do you expect to see the stars in? Today, when we see Orion shining brilliantly out there at night, we know it's winter, because Orion is a winter constellation. We can't see him in the summer. Why? Because the sun is in the same part of the sky as Orion in the summer. So that combination of observational astronomy and just watching the natural world. In the 20th century, in the 1930s, the Irish Folklore Commission, which was established by the fledgling Irish Free State, with the expressed aim of saving as much lore and music and Irish culture as possible, by writing it all down, collected a huge amount of what one would call natural world lore, watching what the cows are doing. If the cows go over against the hedge and lie down, that means there's rain coming. If the swallows fly low to the ground, that means rain is not far off. The astronomy stuff, if there's a halo around the moon, that means rain isn't far off. All that sort of stuff. And every school manuscript that was collected in the school's collection has a section called weather lore. Because before Met Éireann and meteorology and satellites in space watching what's going on, and this bunch of scientists that we call meteorologists, people had to rely on the signs of nature, not just to read what was going to happen later today or tomorrow with the weather, but to look ahead and say, it's going to be a cold winter. I can see the signs. For instance, when the haws were thick on the hawthorn trees at the end of autumn and the beginning of winter, that was a sure sign that it was going to be a cold winter. And reading those signs of nature, which we're all about. Now, all of this does not equal to, it's not a case of A plus B equals C. All of this does not equal to Imbolg being an ancient, pre-Christian and prehistoric astronomical feast or celebration. I think the best that we can say is that we're leaning towards that idea. We can't prove it, and it may be that we'll never be able to prove it unless, as I'm always saying, at some point we actually do manage to invent time travel and we go back and maybe talk to some of the people who built monuments and who studied the stars and the sky, 3, 4, 5,000 years ago, and converse in their language, which we would probably have to learn, Proto-Indo-European or whatever, and ask them, what is the significance of this date, and why are you celebrating? And how do you celebrate it? And I wouldn't be at all surprised if, in fact, an early precursor to what we call Imbolg today was prevalent in the Neolithic. I wouldn't be at all surprised. But just because I wouldn't be a total surprise doesn't mean it definitely happened, We knew when a hurricane was going to be bad because the birds would move, the animals would get quiet and settle down or hide. You see, the natural world reads the signs. They know, and we know, we still do, but we just ignore it a lot now, and we're not out in nature, so we don't see it as much. Yeah, the birds and the fish, says Desiree, birds and animal movement, says Helena. Natural law and observation, yes. And you know what? It's not just because they chose that, it's because that is all they had. It was absolutely necessary. It was entirely necessary living in prehistory, probably in any part of the world, to be acutely aware of the natural world and the behavior of the birds and the mammals and the fish and all that, the patterns of growth and decay, and buds and flowers and fruits on trees and bushes and all of that, the movements of the sun, the movements of the moon, and the movements of the constellations. You put all of that together and you have the perfect natural calendar by which to organize yourself, organize your agricultural activity, organize, for instance, the movement of if you're in pre-Neolithic times, pre-farming days, organize your movements to coincide with the movements of food. It's not such a big thing in Ireland because it's a small country, but I know in the States, there were Native American tribes, is, I believe, not a probably very accurate word to use, but the only one I can think of right now, where they moved with the bison herds, etc. You move with the natural rhythms of the world to where there's going to be food. When you invent agriculture, you bring it to your locale, but you still need to know, you still need to be able to very accurately read the signs of nature and to listen to and pay attention to what it's telling you, which in essence is what Moncon said when he wrote "Listen to the land speak," and we have lost that connection to a large degree. I'm just trying to think if I've kind of satisfactorily covered off the subject. I'm not sure if there's, maybe Imbolg is the only of the festivals that I haven't written. Oh, I have. Yes, indeed I have. So, yeah, there's an article there on the website that might be of interest to you. Why St. Brigid's Day and Imbolg are not the same thing, because they're often conflated. A lot of people on social media in the modern era, on the 1st of February, will post Happy Imbolg. And that is just by the nature of things. That is the convenience of, or the inconvenience, I would say, of the Gregorian calendar, which is that a lot of people say Happy Bealtaine on the 1st of May. And, they say that Samhain is the 1st of November, but they're not. Astronomically, they're not. If they are indeed these halfway points between solstices and equinoxes, Imbolg is on the 4th. They're movable because of leap years and all that. They're not always on the same date every year, but Imbolg's usually the 4th of February. Bealtaine is usually the 6th of May. Lunas, again, usually I think around the 5th, 6th of August. And Samhain, similar sort of picture, I think, is generally 5th, 6th, 7th, isn't it, of November. So they're not. And the eve of Samhain was considered that time when an overused cliche, maybe, when the veil between this world and the other world was at its thinnest, and that world could spill into this one, which is why people went round dressing up and lit bonfires, later to become known as bonfires, to scare the spirits off, to make sure that they didn't interfere too much in your physical locale, as it were. But the eve of Samhain we now call Halloween, and we fixed that on the 31st of October. But of course, in pre Roman calendar days, in pre-calendrical days, the calendar that you had, as I've been saying, was an entirely natural one. So your cross quarter day was counted in days between equinoxes and solstices, or solstices and equinoxes. Yeah, I'm something, Helena. I might be something of a pagan monk, maybe. Is there, if there's even such thing? Or I go even further than that. Is there such thing as an agnostic monk? You know, um, and there aren't really that. I mean, much in the way of sources that I can point you to in relation to um, Brigid. You know, the crossover between a saint and goddess. Um, but it is certainly interesting to me that Brigid was said to have been born on the threshold of a house. She was a threshold saint. And you could extrapolate deeper meaning from that, a wider meaning. And you think about the threshold of Imbolg. Imbolg sits on the threshold between winter and summer. Effectively, the first real signs of spring and growth are here at Imbolg. There's one of your thresholds, possibly, you know. Anyway, oh yes, it's already the 4th of February, so we can certainly say happy Imbolg to Michael and to Monica, who's in that part of the world. Ireland is ideally a country of many farmers, reading nature, saints, scholars, etc., etc. It's the 4th of February here now in the Southern Hemisphere. Yeah, of course, I'm always forgetting. You know, your summer coincides with our Christmas, and I've often read about and seen pictures of people celebrating Christmas on the beaches in Australia and New Zealand and such places. And it's such an alien thing to us because Christmas is always this midwinter celebration when the days are the shortest and the nights are the longest and the weather's usually not very nice, you know. Anyway, I propose to leave it at that because we're streaming now for almost an hour and 40 minutes. Well, I'm happy to hang around for questions and comments. Yes, the Mount of the Hostages, Duan and Neil at Tara, is aligned to the sunrises at this time of year and at Samhain, because remember, as the sun is retreating down the horizon at Samhain, and then it stops at winter solstice and comes back again. So those cross quarter alignments are always dual alignments because the sun can shine in on two different occasions of the year, same as the equinox alignments. Whereas the solstice alignments, if you've got one passage like Newgrange, it's pointing at winter solstice sunrise. It can't point at anything else because it's at the end of the range, as it were. But anything in between, the sun passes twice on its way down the horizon towards winter and then on its way up again as we wax out towards the summer solstice. My snowdrops not even started to sprout yet, and my prunus, which is usually in full flower by now, showing no signs. Oh, interesting. Yeah. I wonder, is that because it's been colder? Or probably wetter than usual. That's probably what's affecting them more than anything. It's snowing where Lily is. Let me just quickly check the old weather situation here. I could go out and have a look, but it's 5 degrees. It's actually got a degree warmer since we started. Yeah. Light snow. I see that on the rainfall radar over North Wales down into Birmingham and Northampton, up as far as Sheffield. Wow. It's snowing in England, folks. Ireland is always wet, hence green. This is true. This is why we're the Emerald Isle. This is why Ireland is described as being the land of 40 shades of green. It's because it's so wet. It You know that combination. Ah, there's Simon. Shoot. Speak of the devil, and he shall arrive. Enjoying the show. Happy St. Bridget's Day and Imbolg. Yeah, I've been referring them. If you were listening for the whole thing, I've been referring them to your work, particularly around the cross quarter days. That's Monumental Ireland, and I think the best place for all that information is on the Facebook, Monumental Ireland on Facebook. Simon, a mine of information, as they say, but also somebody who likes to do his research, and so everything has its sources. I think you'll find that very interesting, in particular that discussion of the origin of this word or compound word that we call, or phrase that we call, cross quarter days. Doesn't seem to go back beyond the 20th century. Yes, but what is your mosquito situation? Almost nil, you'll be delighted to hear, Desiree. So if you're thinking of coming to Ireland, you don't need to worry about mosquitoes. You know, not generally a problem here. Thank you, Kathy May. Have a brilliant week to everybody. Yes, and happy Imbolg to you, and belated happy St. Bridget's Day. Bring it on for all us in the Northern Hemisphere. I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm tired of the cold, damp, dull, dark days, short days, long nights. I need a stretch in the evening. I need to get out. I need to get sun on my face. So, no bother at all, Simon. Yeah, I gave it a mention, a couple of mentions. Right, have a brilliant week, everybody, and we'll see you next week, where I think we'll probably be resuming our reading of Lady Gregory's Cuchulainn of Merheven. I hope you enjoyed that. Again, just to recommend to the newcomers, sign up for the email newsletter over on mythicalireland.com. And please, if you can at all, support Mythical Ireland by becoming a paying patron, because that's, well, supremely important. It wouldn't happen without you, you know. I was wondering, Anthony, if Finn is hoping to get back to school to avoid the dad jokes. You know too much, Lily. You know too much. That's all I can say. Good night, everyone. Thank you, Brendan. Take care, Rex. Indeed. Have a great week. We'll catch you next week. Not same time as same day. Monday is the usual live stream day. Postponed yesterday as a marker of respect to my late auntie, Jean, who we buried yesterday. So back next Monday at 8 p.m. Irish time, whatever your equivalent is in your time zone. In the meantime, all that remains for me to say is Ichawa Kolosov, Slán go fóil, agus tó go bugé.